Alright, back in my day, when I was in my 20s working in an industrial park, there was just America Online. Internet was in infancy. There was no ordering online, or there was no electronic uh, stuff yet. But what we did have was people did have resentment what they were putting gratuity on your bill when you're eating in a restaurant. They were starting to do with that. I remember that back in back in my day, back in the days of my uh, me having my first job out of minimum wage. People were mad about that. Like at places like Pizza Hut and stuff like that, that you get your bill instead of leaving a tip on the table. The bill is there would be like a thing for gratuity on there, and asking you to pay that way, which I really thought that was in bad taste and stuff like that. So that was the era that I came from. Alright, what's up, yins guys? Time for another video. And yeah, I can't believe it. Last couple of days, like 85 degrees and shit, and now all of a sudden the weather changes and back in a jacket and everything else. It's damn weird. But anyway, I want to tackle this subject matter because I was watching this on a YouTube video, which, by the way, happens to be a black YouTuber, Anthony Brian Logan. But I'm sure there was other YouTubers are talking about this. But his video, a couple days old, I saw this. And since some of you guys know me, my motto is, before anybody tries to call you racist, says, no, I'm not. Why be racist when it's more fun to share black YouTubers that you don't like? So anyway, this is a black YouTuber the left doesn't like, and he was doing subject matter on tips being out of control. You know, like tips like you eat at a restaurant or you order your food out. And I wanted to cover this topic because since I'm like just turned 51 years old, talking about how times change. I mean, I was working in an industrial park in the 90s, back in the 90s, and you didn't have that. The internet was just coming to being. You had America Online, AOL, that they were begging you, throwing free CD in your mailbox to go on their dial-up internet. You didn't have all this delivering food, right? But anyway, this would be good to talk to any of you guys. These damn trucks quit being rude and gunning their engines and driving by when I'm trying to make a fucking video. Okay, now, where was I? Yeah, back in the day, you didn't have all this shit. Any of you guys that are within my age group would understand that, so I'm going to take you back there. And any of you guys watching this that know me already for my goofy food videos, that some of them I'm just improving upon, deleted. I'm not to tell you my whole life story, but if any of you guys out there are lurking, obsessed with me about my goofy food videos that I'm sort of improving upon now, you're going to hear some of my life story, but without making a long ass video. Why I'm trying to be goofy with cooking and really am trying to improve. Because this dovetails into being back in a day where I didn't have time to cook, okay? Not to tell you my life story, but I started out like, lived in a street, you know what I mean? Say you can afford to buy a car, but it wasn't worth it because the restaurant I lived across the street from had its own parking lot over here, but everybody parked along that street. And a lot of people didn't stay in the building that I was in. Every year they were leaving and going somewhere else because they always bitched that, you know, they could never get parked in front of the building when they came from work and all that shit. But anyway, I'm trying to tell you my tipping was based on the fact that I lived across the street from a restaurant which I frequented, and the reason being, and this, any of you guys that are lurkers obsessed with me about my bad food videos, I had a lifestyle, if you will, worked 10 hours. I was the asshole, less bald and less gray, but I was prided myself in walking around arrogantly and going to pay for a meal. Even family members and people didn't like me very much, you know, pay for the meal and tip generously. because it was a restaurant across the street, but I tipped places out of town fairly generously too, if I was going out, because I kind of like that shit. There was a day, and you didn't. This relates. I'm getting to the point. This relates too because you didn't have all the LGBT blue green piercings, all the special interest groups back in the day when I was working real well. You had some people with a few piercing and tattoos, and that's it. You had some gay rights hearing on the news, and the biggest. I'm getting to the point. The biggest enemy, the what do you call it? The haters that were, a lot of them were diehard old church ladies, conservatives, like I said in other videos, that were a dinosaur right now. I mean, I was actually this bad person for having a good paying job and having long hair, walking arrogantly with money and just, tipping. I should have been, back in them days, that's what you had. The person with long hair was the bad guy, and if he had money or whatever in his pocket and was tipping, oh my God, and you should have been dragged away by the police, thrown in a cage, and have your money and belongings confiscated just for having long. That's what we had back in the day. You didn't have all the shit you have on YouTube. I'm trying to keep that short. I'm giving you this because that was what people hated back then. Now have long hair and grayer and balder, and I'm still, me and other long-haired YouTubers are still staying relevant, in a sense, But anyway, the fact that I worked 10 hours in industrial park or whatever too, your day is, once you take your bath or your shower, you want to go out and eat. There's sometimes on a weekend or a Sunday you don't feel like doing the fucking shopping, and I was a lousy cook. I tried it, fucked up the spaghetti, and ate some of it and then threw it down the bachelor's garbage disposal, aka toilet. Whoosh! I just ate out a lot. And getting to this point here, this is another thing too about videos that I talked to you about too, about surviving inflation of these days, right? Well, everybody else where you worked with, or even people younger than you that looked like school kids that didn't like you for whatever reason, gave you dirty looks, right? Didn't like you because, for example, instead of going out and drinking or smoking your weed or whatever the hell, buying drugs for people, I was more prudent and put my money into eating out. And my first apartment, right, was almost like just Jeff Foxworthy. Remember with Jeff Foxworthy and his comedy shows? That was me. My first apartment was, you got halfway decent clothes, and you got the couple $1,000 stereo. Yeah, when you first started your apartment, got the old security deposit, you were temporarily almost starving, but you sure had starving the first few months, but at least you had good tunes. And then you're like kiting checks a little bit or whatever, putting your money into eating out and stuff that you wanted, and you were almost willing to kite checks to get yourself something nicer that way and get ahead, rather than running out and drinking and everything, right? And since I lived across the street from a restaurant, and the most that I would ever do is go to a cafe around the corner that served beer, their fish sandwiches, and drink a Rolling Rock maybe one time a week. The kind of place where they do leave broad hints with the body language if you were to order, say, one beer. The body language that says, we're not a bar here. If you want to go get drunk, go to the loser bar down the street. That kind of place, a cafe. I do that, have a Rolling Rock and a fish sandwich. That's the extent of what I did. I wasn't the bar stool person, trying to hit on some chick that wants free drinks, thinking I'm going to get graced with some kind of encounter. And, or whatever the hell. Yeah, I was more like that, for the very reason, when you ever had to work 10 hours, like I said, you had your shower or whatever, and decided to go across the street and eat or whatever, and those people you're somewhat friends with because you eat there every day, your day's shot anyway, and then you spend the rest of your time maybe listening to some things in that expensive stereo that you bought your 400 disc changer or whatever the hell, and get ready for the next damn day and shit. You know what I mean? And I didn't do all that partying or whatever. And in this video, you would say this words ring true today too. If you want to survive inflation and have a better quality of life, guess what? You don't need all kind of drinking. You don't need to be buying drugs from Mr. King of the Streets and his buddies to prove that you're down with them and not in cahoots with the police and not a snitch or whatever the fuck people believe now. You know what I mean? Like throwing in there, yeah, then yeah. I make my sarcastic comments in videos and on text too about what I believed that back then without internet, and I just say all the shit I believed back then. Now internet comes along, I'm saying it right on here. So yeah, there was certain haters that didn't like the fact that you weren't buying drugs from their friends in the streets and you were putting your money into eating out and that. How dare you and you walking around with a cocky look on your face and self-esteem. And then you had the, like I said before, the church ladies that are a dinosaur now, that the big enemy was the person with the long hair and money, and there was no big LGBT hoopla going on like you have now. Everybody targeted the people with the long hair, and oh my god, you got money, you must be selling drugs or something. You got money, go eat in a restaurant, and you must be selling drugs or something, be able to eat out every day. Like, I used to like that shit. You know, I mean, I used to revel in that shit. You know what I mean? I loved the dirty looks. If any of you guys that still were lurking, that yeah, so anyway, my bad food, if any of you lurkers out there that were obsessed with me for my bad food videos, I'm trying to give you a story behind this too, along with talking about tips. But oh, by the way, yeah, that's what I getting about tips. There's the okay, before the internet, there was these people were kind of getting mad because places like Pizza Hut were putting a gratuity on the bill without asking you. You know what I mean? And yeah, I'm getting a little off the subject. I wanted to put that in. Yeah, before we had this internet, that's what I wanted to say too. Yeah, before we had this, there was that. I was telling my partner that. And I know my mother used to go ape shit over that shit and tell him. I says, she says, I'll leave a tip when I goddamn well want to it. I don't want anybody. Yeah, a lot of people resent that. I get it. But me, going on and on, I was a person that kind of reveled in walking in there and just whipping out money, being the person with long hair that people didn't like, you know, walking in like the $1 Million Man, the wrestler. Remember the $1 Million Man, strutting in there with a cocky look on my face. You know, you get your first job out of minimum wage, that's how you feel, and you're tipping. And I was able to afford to do that because I put my money into that, because you're working 10 hours. And it was easy because it was across the street, and it was the kind of shit that was just easier to do. You know what I mean? But yeah, I'm kind of almost laughing because I got carried away in this video. Like that was back in the days where the location across the street in a restaurant was a convenient thing. You know what I mean? And when you start to get to know that people, you kind of like, if you got this far in this video, you started to get friends with some of the people because you ate there across the street, right? And you know, you would be quite aware too that, yeah, whether you're a bigger tipper or whatever, and you kind of were aware in your own mind somewhere that some people there might have been pretending to like you. I don't know about you, if you were any of you guys out there were one of them people. I, for one, I was pretty much aware of that. I mean, I didn't live in any dream world where I was acting like it. Well, as you know, some of them you like you and some of you don't. Like, I'm not going to tell a long story about it, but I had ones that were nice to my face that were servers I knew for years. They, you know how you hear things on a wall on the other side and they didn't know you came in there sitting down there, right? And you know, you'd hear conversations about all kind of crap, you know, when you're sitting down, you know the voices of one particular servers. But yeah, they didn't know I was sitting there one time, maybe one or two that don't like me all the time. And I could have got all mad and said, "Oh, I heard that, fuck you," but I didn't. But they took they didn't know I was there, right? And they took something from a conversation that I was having with one of them and somebody I was sitting next to, a friend of mine from town, where I was joking about the dating scene, how bleak the dating scene is, and you work at 10 hours and you don't drink or smoke, and you ain't gonna be around anybody. I was joking about the dating scene, like the comedian Henry Rollins and other people joked about the dating scene, right? Well, they didn't know I was sitting there, and they took the joke and they were creating oh, everybody has somebody but me sarcasm about me, right? And they were even singing the David Lee Roth song, the song that David Lee Roth remade. It was originally a song by somebody else. Oh, I ain't got nobody care about me. And it wasn't even about that. I could have told them off. I mean, they took, and you know, people like that, any of you guys watching right now, you probably been there and you'd be like, they know damn well that you were just joking about the dating scene, but they didn't really like you anyway, and they wanted to twist it to make them feel better about themselves, right? When maybe they were nice to your face, and they're you know, the kind of people that are nice to your face, and but yet they have a problem with you and maybe dislike you a little bit because you didn't do anything to them, but they still don't like you because you were some arrogant shit with long hair that makes a considerable amount of money more than they do in an industrial park at the time, you know, out of minimum wage, which, yes, sometimes you had some pressure and I do a lot of work, but, you know, deep inside are jealous. And like I says, then later on, like I says, not like I was gonna say, I heard that, fuck you, or whatever. I was more of the forgiving type, and then I would wait till later, other days later, and say something jokingly, coincidentally later on the lines, you know what I mean? So people hear I was like more like that and all that, and would say something jokingly so people could hear like later on to get even and then forgive them for it, because after all, if you got this far in this video, I was more like, I don't got a big temper. I'm more like the person that'll backhandedly get in even with you later. I have this mixture of, I'm similar to the YouTuber Sticks Hexenhammer 666, but I might argue that I have a little bit more Christian in me, a mixture of Christianity, and I don't like to use the word occult, but I have a mixture of Christianity and other beliefs, which I'm a forgiver. I'll be nice to people. I'll do something back or say something backhanded to get even. Never lose my temper and never get triggered. But I trigger my haters, and even I'll have a tendency to trigger the people that are not known to be haters, but pretend to like me to my face, but resent me, so to speak. And I have no problem with that. It's just try to give you a lesson in there that there's a part of being a forgiver and being smart, you know what I mean, too. And but yeah, I kind of, yeah, even members of my own family, I was the kind of person that would pay for the meal and do the tip, but people had problem with, yeah, but to end this anyway, yeah, I understand the electronic thing, whether you have food delivered or the electronic paying now in restaurants, but I was trying to brief you on, before we had all that, there was the gratuity they tried to put on the paper receipt that some people had problem with, and that's the era that I come from, you know what I'm saying?